I'm Chrissy. Welcome back. Today I'm doing a horse. I like doing horses. You may have gathered you'll have seen others on my channel if you watch. So today I've just done a dark blue background and just dry brushed most of it in really. So I wanted it to be blue, the whole of the painting, just with building up with highlights. So what I've done, I've drawn it all out with some chalk. Then I'm going to fill it in with my paint. So here we go. So I'm using a light blue here and I'm using a pretty much dry brush, so I'm scrumbling to start off with. So you don't want much paint on your brush. I'm using a little round brush. So I'm just putting some dark values in now. The dark you can see is just a dark indigo blue. But you can use any blue, even a little black if you haven't got a really dark blue. So I'm just trying to get all the detailed bits in that I can see where I've done all my drawing. Because what's going to build this up is obviously all your lights and your darks combined together to bring out your image. So he's actually stood in some water. I thought that was cool, so I like that effect. But I suppose you could do this in any colour. I just went with blue because there were quite a lot of blue left on my palette. I thought I'll use that up with a tiny little bit of purple. But I suppose you could pick any colour you prefer to be realistic. Doesn't really matter, I don't think. So I've gone back to my white paint again. It's tinted, that paint. It's not pure white, so I want to build my layers up. So it's tinted with a blue colour. And obviously titanium white. So work round your painting as you go, so each layer can dry and then you can come back again. But if not, you make sure you dry every layer before you come back, because you're using a dry brush. If you start scrubbing on wet paint, it'll just dig a hole into your canvas. So make sure it's dry. I'm just getting his mane in there. So I've come back with a little bit of purple. So that's tinted with some white. And I've gone back to the blues again. So it's just blues and purples, that's all I'm using. And that really dark blue, which looks black, but it's not. Blue. So there I've done a thin glaze here over his back, as you can see, just to get a nice smooth finish on that. Glazing again with that other colour, blue, with a bit of white, like a baby blue colour. So make sure it's all dry, like I said, because we're gonna come back in a bit and start scrumbling over the mid-tones that we've put in. But I use this little round brush because it was just easier to get in all the little nooks and crannies, you know, on his face and all the creases. But I suppose you could use an angle brush or a little small flat brush, whichever you're comfortable with anyway. So the dark I'm using again is that indigo blue to get the dark ripples in the water, the shadows. Also, you could have done this coloured as well. You could have done it a white horse or a brown horse, whatever you wanted to do. But like I said, I had this colour on my palette. I thought I'll use it up and do it this way. And I thought it looked pretty cool when it was finished. There again, I'm glazing the water just to soften it just a little bit, especially at the background. So I don't want too much detail showing because it's in the distance. So that's dry now. So I've come back and I've done another layer of white. It's still tinted slightly. It's not pure titanium. And then with that little paint then I had on my brush, I just done the dry brush, the scrumbling. So when you're doing that, you only need a tiny little bit of paint on your brush. Else it won't work basically. You've got to just have a little bit of paint. So I'm doing some more shadows there and some highlights in the water. And I've got my little filbert there. It's only a little tiny filbert. It's got lovely nice soft bristles just to soften things out, especially doing the water because I want it soft looking. Doing some more shade in there with another blue. It's just a bit darker. So basically all I've done is use the same blue and just keep adding white or less white or more blue and so forth. You get the tones that you're looking for. So obviously more white you put in, the lighter it's going to be. And then I just add a little bit of purple on the side and I mix that into the mix as well. You don't need the purple, I just used it up because I had it lying around on my palette. I thought I'd use it. So you can see here I'm scrumbling away. So that's a dry brush, very little paint. So when you scrumble, you tend to get a lot of nice soft edges that you're blending into everything. If your brush is too wet with paint, it won't do it. Just bear that in mind when you want to scrumble something soft like clouds or fur or anything like that. You're doing a nice blend. Now I've gone to my rigger brush. I've got some more white paint, but it's still slightly tinted. It's a lot brighter than what we did when we started off. I'm just going to get that detail in again on his face, his forelock, and then I'll go over to his mane and tail. So basically I'm just following what I've done before, but leaving some of the mid-tones showing through so it doesn't look flat. If you cover it all up, then you're just going to have flat white paint. So leave gaps in between. Don't go over the same lines, should I say. As you can see I'm doing here, I'm missing out the dark areas. These rigger brushes, they're great for doing like horsey things, you know, like the manes and that. And trees and all sorts and grasses. So that's dry, so I'll come back to my filbert brush. I'm just putting that pale blue colour on again. A bit more scrumbling. You say wipe your brush off on a paper towel. And then you're ready to go. And dry it in between. Can you see how I'm holding my brush? I want to keep it loose. So the further you are back on your brush, the more looser you're going to do your brush strokes. So I don't want this over detailed, too tight. You know what I mean? I want it nice and free flowing. Just put them highlights in the water. If you've enjoyed this video, you need to watch the video on screen now.